If you don't mind, stop screen sharing. Okay, so I wanted to go over a few things, but just like looking through your progress, I think you already have like a lot of that figured out. But let's just run through them anyway, and you can ask questions as we go along. I do want to hand it over to Clay first, just to give us like quick introduction to like object destructuring. I think at this point, a lot of you guys have used it. But yeah, let's like do a quick like demo there because I went over with Clay this past week on like how we really like use all that within our code base. So Clay, if you don't mind taking it away, and then I will talk about all the other stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna attempt to do what you did for me. Okay, let me share my screen. Although, will it be confusing if I do it in my terminal in this project?
Well, however you need, you could like do it within like an empty file if you want to
Okay.
like open up
Oops. All right. Yeah,
just
maybe
like a
that'll.
JavaScript file or something like that.
Mhm. Let's do. Just make. And then. Oh, wait. New window. Nope, doesn't want to. Oh, okay, I'll just. mm, Close this one so it's not confusing. Okay. All right. So we're gonna be in our little playground and what should I make like two objects and structure them like we did in our example?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So say we have our object, we're gonna name it person one, and I'm just gonna give it some attributes like well, okay, I'll do it how I have it in my notes, so it's as clear as I can also explain it to others. But essentially, this is like creating is like nested attributes a way to call them that?
Like nested object, yeah.
Nested objects, okay. And then being able to sort of call on them is what An was showing me, and I feel like I got to understand it a bit better, especially using them in the props or in our components. Okay, so I'm gonna make our first object, and that's gonna be our person one. So now if we call person one, we have the entire object, and we have a name with these two things called like a first name and a last name. And I believe, was it like we're able to call, oh wait, not quite. I'm forgetting now how we are able to call person one's first name. I think there's, okay. So in originally, like if we think about JavaScript, we could do like person one dot first. Wait, or maybe not. Okay, now I'm completely forgetting. Person one dot name?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And
To
we
get
get
first, you have to chain like first, right? So it would be like person
right,
one dot name dot first. Yeah, you got it.
right. So we get our name object. And then yeah, this is how we've like done it in Flatiron, right? Being able to call everything by chaining with the dot. And An was showing me that you're able to call like like the first name by itself without having to do this chain method. And I'm forgetting right now exactly how to do that. On you want to.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I can walk you through it.
Mhm.
So basically, like, what if we just want to use the variable first? We don't care about anything else that's going on in person one. I just want to call in first and get clay. So, so this is where like object destructuring comes in. So what you would do, Clay, is you would do cons, right? And then you would have the open bracket, and then you would do name,
Mhm.
and then colon, open bracket again, first, close and close, and then equal to person one, right? So now if you do first, you should be able to get clay.
Mhm.
So basically what you're doing is like you're making like a first, like you're making a variable out of first. I don't know what's a better way to put it. And now you could use first anywhere in your code without having to do person one dot name dot first, right?
Right. And the same works for what we have, which is the last name too.
Yeah. So that's pretty much uh object destructuring in a nutshell. And if you look at like within the style components, the way that we're able to pull out the tokens, yeah, if you can go to the badge, yeah, you see where on line 31, we're pulling it, we're like destructuring into the theme object because we want to be able to just use like border, say, wherever we want, right? So border, and we're keying into like other um like deeper into the border object, right? But this, how it saves us is now that we wouldn't have to do theme dot semantic dot border dot radius dot small because we destructure our border from the theme object. We can just use border dot radius dot small. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I,
So
I sometimes get confused about, which of those is actually the variable you're declaring and which of that is just digging into the structure. I think the IDE, Visual Studio Code helps a lot there, where you see border and is subtle or sort of a brownish color. And that's showing you that those are your actual variables that are available, and theme and semantic are white, and it's trying to show you that that is the you're digging into the property, but you don't actually get a variable named theme and all that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So
that's very helpful. Thank you, IDE.
also, I would be really careful on the structuring also, and always think about undefined, right? Always think about undefined. If your value is undefined, what's gonna happen is your code going to throw an error. So
Mm.
make sure that you're either protecting it with what's that term? Is it that double question mark? Is it coalescing or something like that, or even just like an or statement, and then and after that would be like just an object, right? So because let's say for example, if you have a person two equals undefined and you try to destructure that, node is going to throw an error, right? And if you're doing that within your application, are you handling that error, right? So those kind of things, so just keep that in mind when you're destructuring.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Any questions, fellows, on this before we move on?
Um, I kind of have a question. So how, like, I understand for border here, destructuring, but is is that something that we should be also doing with like colors, or because it already is a token? I'm okay, I'm a little maybe a little lost now.
Yeah, so I think what you're doing on line 40, you
Mhm.
see like you're not like getting base out of
Mhm.
the theme object anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And if you scroll all the way up, you actually imported some colors as part of your work, right? If you all the
Mhm.
way up, let's start the file.
Yeah.
More. So that's where you're getting base from, which is fine.
Okay.
So yeah, you can, yeah, because I think you need like the base colors outside of, that style component.
Mm.
Um, Wait, sorry. What was your question again? Like,
Okay, I think you answered it in that. Is like I'm already importing it from the tokens file versus like destructuring based from this
Yeah.
feedback
So
loop?
that's where it's reading base from. But if you want to like pull out base within that theme object, the
Mhm.
same way you're doing with border, you can as
Okay.
well.
Okay, but since I'm using it globally, it's best to just import it as from the file.
Yeah, because it's just gonna reference like the base
Gotcha.
from that,
Okay.
yeah, from that level, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, Clay, for taking one for the team and showing us object destructuring. Okay, so just taking over from here. 1 second. Let me share my screen. Okay, you guys can see. So just a few quick things I want to go over. Because I realized, for you guys to like build these components, you have to have a way to read the style, right? And the way that you get the styles, instead of just, just kind of like eyeballing it, like, oh, this looks bluish, I'm gonna try to, kind of try to come up with my own blue to like match the mock. Figma is there for a reason, right? Because Figma allows you to like deeply inspect all these elements, all these components that were built, and see what their exact style looks like. So sometimes it references like a design token, but if you keep going further in, like it'll tell you exactly what you want, what you need, right? Like what's the weight of this text, what's the size, what's even like the line height, and as well as like the token. So you can like look up the token within our repo and see what you can use, right? You can like copy the string and go look it up here. And if it's not there, you can like hard code for now. But yeah, so if you haven't been doing this already, like I very much recommend, like make sure that when you click into the component, you're able to see all like the typography, text color, etc. on it, because this is like what you want to go off of as you build your components to get it look as closely as you can to the Figma mock. So that's one. And I think, Carlo, you said that like even if you're not in dev mode, so there's like a little toggle up here on Figma. As a default, dev mode is turned off, but I think you should still be able to see some style with dev mode turned off. For some reason, I couldn't, and I don't know if it's like my access level to the Figma or what. But yeah, like once I have like dev mode toggled on, then I can like see all those styles and work off of them. So use this, make your life easier, right? And let's see. Okay, then I want to move on to two other things. First thing is configuring stories, which I think, Clay, you had some trouble with, and Zulai too. So let's go over that really quickly. And I have branched off of actually stats work. So we're just going to use this like section title as an example. I think I have the storybook up. Let's see. Okay, so I think one of the things that I went over with one of you, I forgot who, is that we use Storybook really as like a tool for us to develop out our components, right? It's like the concern for Storybook should come last. Like I would focus on building out the component first. And initially, Storybook would just be there for me to like have a space to plop down the component, see it visually whenever I make the changes, right? And then once I have achieved like everything that my component is supposed to do, then I would worry about like configuring controls and like how to kind of display this on Storybook that makes sense for someone who just wants to check out this component and see what it's all about. So that's where I would go off of first. The pattern that I like to use is, so if we look at section title, that's story. So there's some like meta configuration that we export, right? This I think you guys are familiar with. I see it in like all of your story file. A couple of other things is like, there are a couple of different ways that you can actually like set up a story. So let me just open up like, let's say button stories. So for the button, right, if you see here, export cons basic, and then it basically like points to a function, right? So one way that a story could be set up is via a function. And this is pretty much like what you see is what you get. We're rendering button here. Like the function does take in an arc, argument, just basically like anything that you would pass on arc would like get passed on to the button here. But in this way, it's like it's very much like what you see is what you get. For this one, another way that you can like create a story too is instead of like assigning it to a function, you can assign it to an object. And this object has like certain, I guess like attribute. One of them is called arcs. And this is where you would like manually like type out like what arguments your component is going to get, right? Like, let's say if I do like color here, for example, it's gonna like how it's gonna work, it's gonna get passed into like section title. So I like doing it this way just because it makes it so that the control, the way that the control is set up for you, it's a bit easier because you can also call like the children argument, or you can like set a children here, right? Without having to like do something like this. Right? Like, this is another way I could have done it. But when I pass like children as like a key value pair to arg, it still gets rendered in section title. And here it's like a bit more dynamic. I can like change it around, right? Like it's not just like hard coded as section title. Other things is archetype. Archetype is where you can like flesh out like the control of your props. So, you know, children is a prop. And here, this is where we're saying like, hey, for the children prop, I want the control to be text, right? There's a lot of different types here that you can do. So text is one of them, makes sense for this particular component. Because, you know, like, yeah, typically how you would use this is that you would pass text as children. You can pass other things too, but the most common use case is likely going to be text. So it makes sense for here, but you can configure things like radio button if you just want like the user, if you just want like the viewer of the storybook to only have control over like one of two, like one option of like a set options that you provide them, right? So experiment with this, see if it works for you. Yeah, and you know, Storybook has really good documentation. You can always look it up in case you get stuck. Does that make sense? Oh, Tim, did you say something?
Oh, I was about to, but I didn't want to call anybody asking questions. I was going to say that render you have on line 24, can you ask me just to delete that? Is that actually needed at this point?
Say it again, like if we delete it?
Yeah, since you're setting component on line 8, I think it'll default to what you have there.
Oh, really? Okay, let's see. If I save.
Hope this works. That looks silly.
Yeah, I think you're right. We don't even need that because component is declared on line 8, and it Storybook intuitively knows to use this component and pass the arcs to this component, right?
Yeah. So that lets you, you know, stuff all your variants is just data and not code. If that makes sense. They're just sort of structured data.
Yeah. Awesome. Another way that like I like to just explicitly, you know, call out the render is that, you know, like you have options to like wrap your components in other things too. If that's like, if you see that as a fit way to like display your story, you can add other things. You know, so like if you wanted to just display your component, you don't necessarily have to pass render like Tim said, but you know, I just like to use this as like a consistency, and yeah, it allows me to like add other things if I need to like supplement my story. Okay. And okay, cool. So if there's no questions here, let's move on to, I guess, like a little bit more on the workflow. because one of the things that I see you guys struggle with is like sometimes you would like commit stuff, right? And unintentional things make their way into your div. And you're like, oh my God, where did they come from? Like, when did I install this package? When did I make changes to this config? So one of the typical flow that I like to recommend is that whenever you make a change, try to commit as frequently as possible. So like as an example, let's say I delete this story, that's part of the change. Or actually, maybe I'll just like add a comment to make it simple. Like the flow that I like to do is like once I have like a good breaking point in my work and I want to commit, right? I would do git diff to like see exactly like what changes did I make? Are those changes intentional? And if they're not intentional, like that's a good stopping point for me to be like, okay, let me remove that because like I was experimenting with that. That was never meant to like make its way into my commits. So yeah, so you can do git diff to see like all of the diff that what's different that you're about to commit. And you can also do like git status to see like all the files that were modified, added, or delete. Like once you're confident that this is like, okay, I mean to commit this, then at that point you would do like git add and like go about your, git commit, what message, whatever message, right? But yeah, like follow if you follow this kind of like flow of things, it delineate like sections of your work a lot better, and then you have I think it gives you like more control over like, okay, these are the changes that are going in, so you don't end up with like 2,000 line div and you have no idea where half of those changes come from.
Yeah, I want to add to this. So in my first year working, my tech lead, I had committed a bunch of stuff, so my tech lead made me redo my pull request because there was like a bunch of stuff that's in there that you know were probably added because of like linting fixes or automatic linting fixes or prettier fixes, so those kind of things. So make sure like you're aware of those things where you're only doing PRs that that you made changes intentionally, because some of those changes has already gone through QA testing. And if you're making changes, if you're merging a bunch of changes of files that you didn't do, now they're gonna think, oh, what are all these changes? Do we have to test it again? So that's how, make sure you're aware that you're only committing things that you changed.
Yeah. And like make sure to review your code too when you have the PR open, like review your own code first. And like do a double take to see like, okay, I mean for all of this to be in here, right? Like how you do that file changes, files change, you go here, like these are the divs, right? Like do all of this check out by you, because the way that we review PR, we will go and look at the div and go like line by line and like kind of review your work that way, right? So you want to like as much as you can like catch stuff prior to like another reviewer catching it, right? Oh, and I have this tab open. I meant to show you too. Component.gallery. Has anyone heard of that? So one of the things that I noticed too is like the struggle with like, oh my God, I have to build a component. I have no idea where to start. What kind of prop does this component take in? Like, don't start from scratch. There are inspirations out there, right? And one of the way that you can do that is through like component gallery. You can like search up the component that you want to build, like tag or batch, for example. And there are all these examples from all of these like design systems out there that you can like take inspiration from. I normally default to MUI because I really like their documentation and the way that their API is set up. But like do a little bit of research beforehand, like see how like, other design systems are implementing all these very, very similar components to ours. And then go and take your own stab at it. But yeah, I would say like if you can, like don't start from scratch. a little bit of research goes a long way. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the end of my spiel. Just want to look forward to demo day, which is next Thursday. And what I recommend that you do. So obviously spend this week up until next week to finalize whatever you can. You know, find a good stopping point. If you feel like you can't complete like 100% of what the component is asking you, like see if you can like just focus on like that sub portion and like really refine that up. Like I said before, write unit tests if you can, if you have time, right? And then for demo day, what we're thinking is each person will have anywhere from like 10 to 15 minutes to demo their final version. And hopefully at that time you would get your PR merge and have your whatever state of your component to be like living on our deploy storybook, right? That would be really cool. You know, no pressure if not, you can always like demo like your whatever you have running locally. And yeah, there's always time after the program ends if you feel like you want to continue working on it. Like, yeah, you're super welcome to do so. And we're still going to be here if you have questions and if you need help. But like that's like that's really up to you if you want to continue. If you don't, that's totally fine too. So Krisha said a good way to accelerate your progress is to do 2 to 1 this week. Yeah, so yeah, really
Right.
use us this week.
Yeah. I didn't mean to put you guys on the spot. I know this is double time for the mentors. I know on you have a weekend thing. So if you guys can, who's assigned to you? So I put this on Slack and we could chat there if we're beyond time today. But I encourage 2 mentors, 2 to 1, because then, you know, if one mentor has their own style, the other mentor can give another, you know, solution. I think that just helps. So you're not locked into just like one way of doing things. But yeah,
Yeah,
is this a good pairing for everybody? I know you're not available on. I want to confirm if you're able to do
I'm
this.
available up until Friday. Yeah, I'm going away like Friday and then over the weekend, but tomorrow I should have some time after work. I know I'm meeting with stats tomorrow, but if anyone else, you know, feel like they need some assist, like
Yeah, and this is not locked in, but I think I would encourage, because like last week we did office hours. I mean, we can still do off. I don't know if we can do that on Saturday, but we can just ping us on Slack on the weekend too. But I think I always go by a book schedule, right? Like that's just a thing. This is for me, like I don't try to keep it open. Like if you guys want to come, come. I think booking it just locks you into a commitment and puts you, you know, put accountability for both the mentor and the, you know, you, because that's like your window, right? So you definitely should take that opportunity, especially if An's available before Friday. And Tim, I'm sorry again if you're not, let me know. But I think I assigned
Yeah.
who I assigned. I assigned July again to Tim, and then Carlo for you, Zulai. So I think it's good to just have 2. And you're in the presence of greatness here. I don't know if you guys know, but On worked at Spotify, so you're basically getting that. So just saying, our only woman engineer here is, I'm just saying. Anyway, so take advantage of that before the demo. Any other words from the mentors? I know we didn't have time.
Oh, yeah. So last thing really quickly about the demo is, yeah, you're going to demo your component and just talk about the process it took to create that. And then second part of that is like, would love to kind of like hear your perspective on reflection, your reflection through this whole experience, what you know, anything that you want to share pretty much. How was it for you? And like how you're going to like take all this learning into like a future job, for example. So, you know, you can like throw together like a short presentation or however you want to do it. I'm pretty flexible with that. Sounds good to everyone? Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's all then. Yeah, we can end here and
I have a question about the demo day. Are there like specific questions? I was gonna write it in the chat, but I was like, I could just turn on my mic. Are there like specific questions we should target when we're presenting? But like anything specific that we need to make sure that we include in our presentations?
I can draft up an outline if that's helpful. But yeah, I think you just want to go through like break down all the stages that went into like building your component, whether it be like setting up story, like learning this, learning that, you know, writing tests. Yeah.
Awesome,
I
sounds good.
also have a question for writing the tests. I was curious if like I know Carlo mentioned writing tests for any sort of changes that are happening to our component. Um is that like how many tests do we make for our component?
I guess what I would like is just for you to be able to get some exposure on writing test, on like being able to know how to identify what should you test, like
Oh.
those kind of things, right? Like, I mean, it that really depends on you. Maybe okay, so if your component is really simple and or it has like a couple of properties only, then maybe like one or two tests. But normally I would see tests like, okay, um it would test, okay, has the component mounted successfully, right? Those kind,
Mhm.
that's like one of the first things that I normally see on a test. And then like some that they would go dig in a little deeper on various props that would change the behavior of their component, right? So those things are, some things to think about, right? And or if there's like an on-click functionality, like how would you test that on-click functionality, right? Or if there's some kind of like validation that's happening, right? So those are different things that you want to think about when you're um testing, right? So try to see just try to get comfortable with how you form your test and how approach testing and what to test and things like that.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. This might be a little ambitious, but I feel like I can get my component done this week. Is there like a really, really, really simple one that maybe I can like work on, or I don't know if I can finish it, but maybe I can like get some groundwork on it or something.
I love that. Yeah, we'll probably connect with Krisha if she has additional components um that we have in the did you see on if there's any other?
There's a couple, I think there's one tech debt ticket. Oh, like the font issue, if you want to take that on. Let me find a ticket. Oh, no,
Which font issue?
because you know how like I only install like one version of Montserrat and didn't
Oh, that's
so
a good one.
that's one thing. And then oh actually the one tickets that I have defined is setting up storybook auto docs, which I'm linking here. So yeah, this could possibly be something that you take on to Clay if you want. But I think for yeah, for this week, like really focus on just getting your PR merged. That's the first thing before, you know.
Yeah, because you still have to go through a code review and if you're if, me, I can get a little crazy with code review, so not not really, but I'm just trying to scare you, but I'm
Yeah.
okay.
A lot of
Okay.
a lot of time for changes.
Sounds good. Tomorrow we're gonna do this.
Okay. Well, nice touching base with everyone. Hope you guys are having fun with these components.
Yeah.
And that
Sounds
you're
good.
learning a lot. But yeah, really nice to see progress so far and excited for demo day next week.
Yay.
Oh wait, so we're still going to meet Tuesday next week, right? For any last minute wrap up things that folks might have. Yeah, and then demo day on Thursday. Okay. All right, sounds good. I'll see you guys then. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, so y'all,
Bye.
good
Bye.
night.
All right.